Hi, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and I really messed up. I started on a lawnmower of a co-worker's and I didn't turn on the camera. I didn't think it was going to be a huge project, but it's turning into one. I wish I would have had the camera going. I'm going to pause this a couple of times because I want to pick up my tablet and I want to switch to the back camera so I can see what I'm showing you. Then I'm going to switch back to the front camera so as I'm working I can look at what you're seeing and adjust the camera so you get a little bit better view. I have to apologize about the last video about the snowblower engine of my boss's, because when I put the camshaft in, there's not much you could really see. So if you look up here, I'm starting a overhead bracket so I can look directly down, or I should say you can look directly down inside the engine and see what I'm looking at. So next time you'll be able to see a little bit. Now this is one of these brainstorm engines that Briggs and Stratton came up with, that you just pull the rope and it runs. There's no choke to worry about, no throttle to worry about. Once your engine starts, the wind off of the flywheel blows this lever, and that's what opens your choke. You can see it opening and closing. And the governor, this is the huge problem with these machines. The governor shaft coming out of the block, they freeze up. This one still works. I worked on his brother's and it froze up and there was nothing. I did get it running, but I twisted it with a pair of pliers and got the RPMs up where they were supposed to be. But when it gets in thick, heavy grass, it kind of bogs down on him. Now to control your RPMs, that's what this spring does. That's hooked to this little bracket that goes behind the carburetor. This pulls against what the governor is trying to do to keep it going in even speed. If you have a problem and you want to get some more RPMs out of it, you can take a pair of pliers and bend this forward. But you want to keep track you don't over rev it. Now let's go back to, we're going to pull the carburetor off and see what that looks like. Now we brought this thing in this morning and I brought it home when I got out of work, and I sprayed starting fluid in it. Extra strength starting fluid. It would not even pop. It would not start on that stuff. So I said, okay, pulled the plug out and I checked for spark. Nice blue fire. Okay, now what? So I pulled the gas tank off and I had to drain it into something. This is the top half out of the gas tank. Not bad. It's a little cloudy. It does have a little dirt in the bottom. But the bottom the bottom half, this is what we came out of the bottom. See that stuff in the bottom floating around? That's a ½ inch of water. And when it came out, it was totally black. This is what it looked like when it came out of the gas tank. It was just, I couldn't believe how dirty it was. So I'll bring that in and show it to him tomorrow. So let's see if we can get the carburetor off this thing. I'm kind of curious on what that's going to look like. Put a rag under there. And we'll pop this thing off. I'm just hoping that the main jet is not froze or rusted or corroded, I should say, into the bottom of the carburetor. Because if it is, I'm not going to be able to do much to it outside of buying a new carburetor. Take all this crap off of here. Get this to spin around that shaft. I guess I'm going to have to, didn't really want to take that off. A lot of times these things don't want to unscrew out of the aluminum. Ugh. That's your wind vane. Now let's see if we can get this off. Ah, there we go. Now we're gonna shove this thing over out of our way. That's if anybody's home. I don't want them running around in my shop. I haven't told them yet, but it's an extra $30 per mouse that comes out of this thing. I just can't believe how much dirt is caked onto this thing. It's like 22 degrees out right now, and typically before I bring a machine in here, I power wash them outside. But being this cold, I don't think I want to get that out. It's not a big deal on winterizing it because I leave them inside, in here. I don't put them out in the garage or the old lean-to. I keep them inside. Now, ½ inch maybe, huh? Kind of what it looks like. I kind of wanted to keep it spilled out. I kind of wanted to keep in there so I could see how much water was in the carburetor, but for what I seen in the gas tank, this has got to be full of water. Yeah. I don't know if you could see that, if I can tip the camera down or not. I'll move that up. Try tipping this down. Oh, it won't tip down far enough. Crap. But yeah, you're not going to be able to see the water in there. Yeah, there's quite a bit in the bottom. There almost had to be for as much as that was in the gas tank. I'm surprised there's any gas at all in this thing. Well, we'll plug this in and get it warming up. As soon as that gets hot, we'll throw the carb in there and clean it out. Not much in here to take apart. This one looks like it's pressed in. So we're going to have to clean it up best we can and then use the little wires to make sure it's cleaned out. So I guess we'll pause this until the man, I wish you could see that on camera, but it's really hard to see down inside of there. We'll be back when we throw this in and get it washed. Okay, the tank's warmed up. We're gonna throw this thing in. That looks pretty dirty. We're gonna throw that in. And we're gonna throw this carburetor in here. And the gasket does not want to come off right now, so we'll see if it stays on or if I have to take it off before it's totally cleaned. And that might come off after it comes out. Comes out of the tank. Boy, is there a lot of corrosion on there. You would think it had a steel float bowl on it, as bad as that's corroded. That's just unreal. I don't know if you can see that or not. We'll see what the tank does to it. I'm gonna throw the jet in. That looks about as clean as it's gonna get. We'll throw this in and we'll let it go for about 20 minutes and see what it looks like. Now once I start this, you are not going to be able to hear me. I don't know what it is about this, but it just wipes the sound right out on this thing. Whew. That's warm. And I'll see you in 20 minutes. Okay, I got the carburetor out. I blew it off. I ran these cleaners through all the holes I could possibly find on it. I just got to finish up this plug that's in the bottom, or I guess they would call this one of the jets. But I couldn't even see through it before. We'll see what this does for it. Wow, I can actually see light through there. That's amazing. And I can see light through the cross hole, shining it down the end, so I know that's open. Well, let's try to put this thing back together and see if it runs. Must go through the other way because it doesn't want to go in. Now you always want to check and make sure the float isn't hitting somewhere on the carburetor. Because if it does, you either have to bend this so it's not touching, or you have to buy a new float. And as my old school teacher told me how to check to see if the needle's working properly, I want to put a vacuum on it. That's working good. We'll put this seal on for the float bowl. And I don't know if I showed you or not, but all that white corrosion that was on where the seal went for the float bowl is gone. It came off in the cleaner, and with the help of a brass brush, that thing acts like it's too small. I was afraid when I tried to wipe it off I was going to stretch it out of shape, but I certainly didn't do that. There. Now we'll put that on. We'll screw this jet in. I guess that's a jet. Get this thing on there square so the hole's open. Give that a little tweak. And our O-ring looks pretty good that goes on the carburetor opening on the block. Slide this thing over here. Hey, let me shake you up a little bit. Now, I am going to put a fuel filter on this thing and a new fuel line, because I took this one off and I cut it open, and the inner lining of this is starting to shrink down a little bit. So if you have a problem with your machine, it's not idling up, it's not starting, it's running sluggish, check your fuel line. I had one of my viewers sent me a picture of what he actually found wrong with his Rider engine. I think it was like a 17 horse. It just wouldn't run. He tried it, he put on fuel filter, spark plug, coil, I don't know, I can't remember everything he did to it. And the last thing, he said it just wouldn't run. He pulled the gas line off and cut it in half. And this is what he found. The inner lining in the gas line, or hose, shrunk and collapsed from the alcohol in our fuel. It's very hard on rubber. Plastic. It's hard on a lot of stuff. They even tell me it's hard on some metals. So we're going to put this O-ring on here. This does not have a gasket up against this metal flange. It just relies on that O-ring. Oh, let's see. Stay. Right, what I want. That look a little long. I might have them switched with something else. Now, got the governor shaft hooked up. Hooked a spring up on here. Maybe. That looks good. Now I want to show you, I cleaned out, first I cleaned off the outside of the fuel tank. It was really bad. Then this morning I went outside and I cleaned the inside of the fuel tank. And this is my parts washing container. I like this. I use it with paint thinner. I can clean off all the parts. I let it set for a couple of days and all the mud and dirt settles out to the bottom, and I can pour it back into my 5-gallon container, and then all the mud and crap I just wipe out and throw away. This really works great for me right now. But I want to show you everything that came out of the inside of the gas tank. I don't know if you can see all this stuff in here, but that's all of the crap that was inside of the tank. It's all over, all around the bottom of this rim. So we're going to put on this fuel filter, wherever I did with it. See if it'll fit in there. I don't know, might not. I may have to go to one of them crappy little red ones that do pretty much nothing. And if I do, I'll have to go buy one because I don't have any of those. I use these better ones. Let's see. We'll stick this on here. This is our wind vane that shuts the choke off. Everything lined up here. Now we're going to get this little spring on. That might be a trick. I mean, it's a short spring and they have it stretched from here to here. So that's quite a stretch for this little spring. You can see they have it stretched right out of shape. That appears to be working. Now we got to get this fuel tank on here. Let's see. I'm going to need a couple extensions to reach that. We're just going to start this back screw. And we got to put the cover on the recoil cover because that goes over top of this. Ugh, I should have cleaned that, I guess. I wanted to change that gasket that goes in the block for the oil fill, but that one's different. I gotta turn this and get it away from the cover. In order to change that out, you got to get the whole dipstick tube. Oh, I don't know why they have such a long bolt. You're going through a piece of sheet metal that's about a 32nd thick. A 1/4 inch long bolt would have worked. Okay. These are little shoulder bolts. You can't really over tighten them and break the plastic. They don't want you doing that. To get this all together, I'm gonna have to go out in the garage and get my can of gas and fill this thing up. All right, I don't know where that other screw goes. All right, I guess I'll run out and get my gas can. I'll be right back. Well, I'm back from the store. I should say 2 stores. First one didn't sell these crappy little things. They sell the bigger ones. This is a white one. They have red ones, and there is a difference. It's not just color. The red ones are 150 micron. These white ones are 75 micron. And these bigger ones are 40 microns. So it's not the bigger number is better, not with microns. This one is more than 4 times better than the red ones. And it's about 1.5 times better than these white ones. I did buy it because if I can't get this in here, I'm going to have to use that. But we're going to try and get this crowded in here and make it work because I'm not sure I got all the junk out of this gas tank. So I guess we'll see what happens. Let's put a little on that stub. Well, it's on there. We'll see what it does. Why don't we, while we're doing the rest of this, we'll pour some gas in here and let it run down into the carburetor. Well, I guess I better open up my vent. That ought to be enough. And yes, this is ethanol free. I don't use that other stuff in my machine or anyone else's. It looks like the filter is filling up. Yeah, we'll put this air box on and where's the one I want? Well, that's not it either. I don't know if this thing is metric or what the problem is. Yep, that's the problem. Metric screws. Oh, and I have some really bad news. When I was taking a break, I watched Chick Canic. Her and her husband have a 14-year-old small engine repair business in Arkansas. Check her YouTube channel out. She is good. She just got notified that they will no longer be building Kohler engines. They sold, it was a family business started, I don't know how far back. And a company bought them out mainly because they want their generators that they build. They build a commercial generator, and this company basically bought them out just for that. They supposedly are going to keep building Kohler engines. They'll just carry a different name. And what'd she say? They inherited the contracts with the union, and they're going to keep all the employees, and they're going to keep the business running the way it is. Well, she said for at least 2 more years, because then the contract expires. So we don't really know what's going to go on with that. Just thought I'd give you a little crappy news. So if you're lucky enough to find some old stock lawnmowers or whatever with a Kohler engine on it, I would probably buy it now. Even if you don't really need it. I would pick one up. Kind of like I did with my Cub Cadet snowblower I bought. I didn't really need it, but I figured I might as well get it now before the price climbs up, and then I end up needing one in a year or 2. I'll be doing a follow-up video on that pretty quick, along with my Cyclone rake, and tell you the things I've changed on it already, and let you know what I think of it. Now we're going to let me pause this. I want to get my dust collector hooked up so I can suck the exhaust out of here, and we'll see if this thing starts up. Well, we did get the dust collector hooked up, but as always, before I ever start a piece of equipment, even my own, if I check the oil, mow my yard, shut it off, go in and have lunch, come back out, I check it again. I never start a small engine without checking the oil. So I thought, maybe I better check this. Well, as you can see, it's very low. This side is better. And it's very black. So I guess we're going to be changing the oil before we start this thing. Hang on. Okay, we got it all together. We got the oil changed. We got the fuel filter on, which is the bigger one. I know you can't use that on gravity. And for some reason, I thought I'd just give it a couple of pulls to see if it would start. Now this is my dominant arm is my right arm. This thing, it pulls so easy. I said, okay, that's not right. So I got out my compression tester and I screwed it in the spark plug hole and I pulled it 4 or 5 times as fast as I could, and I had like 15 pounds. I said, well, all these camshafts have decompression on them. So you can't really go by that unless you put a drill motor on there and really get it spinning. So I pulled that off and I put my leak down tester on there. I don't know if too many of you guys have one of these, but they are an awesome tool. This was not that expensive. I don't remember where I paid for it. It's by OTC, and I don't know if you know how these things work, but you have all the adapters for different plugs, and you have 2 gauges on this thing. You crank the pressure up until you get 100 psi pumped into the engine in the cylinder. Now you want it to cylinder top dead center and make sure both valves are closed, obviously. And then this, if the engine's perfect, which most of them are not, they say an allowable leakage is 10%. They said on a brand new engine or even a car, it's allowable to have 10% leakage. Now that would be clear over here at 90. Some of these better ones, this gauge is the other way. So if it's like over on 80, it would be on 20. It'd be telling you you have 20% leakage. So you use this one, you have to do a little math. So I pumped this thing up to 100 psi, and I had 10%. So I got 90% leakage in this engine. Where was it coming from? Well, it's pretty easy to tell once you got 90 psi leaking out of this thing. The muffler is just hissing. Probably 70 or 80% is coming out of the muffler. You have some coming out of the carburetor, and I didn't hear any coming out of the dipstick tube. But the muffler's making so much noise, I don't know if it was leaking, the rings are leaking or not. But this thing will tell you a lot without even taking the engine apart. Next time, that will be the first thing I do before I start doing any work on an engine. Especially if it pulls over this easy. It slipped. I didn't notice it. It got past me and I did a lot of work for nothing. Called up Greg and told him, and he says, just let me know what you got into it and we'll scrap it out. He said, if there's any parts on there you want, go ahead and take them. So I'll probably take the carburetor and the coil, maybe the muffler, a few little parts that could be bad on somebody else's that I may need, and I'll throw them in a box and label them. That's about all I can do at this point. So unfortunately, we're not going to hear it run. I guess you can't win them all. So until next time, work safe, have fun, and I'll talk to you soon. So long.